The strategic shifts, that we've got to, have as a accountancy organization to ensure that we remain globally competitive in this regard.
Thank you, Rian. Good morning once again, difference makers. And in the words of our minister, especially to you, Bruce, those of you who watched the game yesterday said, we're going to America. So we're coming, Bruce, we're coming. So thank you for that question. Definitely the change is happening. And the biggest concern we have as a profession globally is whether we're moving at the pace of the change that is happening. And when I'm saying we, I'm talking about the ecosystem, right? And that's what this panel was designed with that in mind. When we talk about attractiveness, it's about whom are we attractive to as a profession, and then also those we want to attract into the profession, to what extent are they seeing us as attractive? There is no doubt that the future is youth. If I can share some data points, and that's why this conference is coined InfoSight, because we want to have the right insight so that we can have, good foresight as a profession as well. If you look at the study done by the BF, right, it's very clear that 42% of the youth is going to be the youth in Africa. This is now the global statistics that it's been projected, and we're part of that Africa group. There's no doubt, we know South Africa is also getting younger and younger, right? And it's a question of, if that is the case, how do we then close off that generational, what I'm seeing as well as a divide that we currently are having in terms of what the youth sees as attractive, from being a purpose driven, purpose led. They want the cool stuff with AI and so forth. So there is that perception that we're probably not attractive because we don't seem to be working with these things. But yet our main focus as a profession, even Saica as an institute, we're very intentional to have a focused approach on sustainability and AI. We've done the work, from a competency perspective to ensure that we can integrate the right competencies with those two areas I've spoken to, sustainability and AI. And the two are very much interconnected, right? I mean, a good example is now we know that as you now go to use your Gen AI app, whichever one you use, the amount of energy it uses as an example. So the two, that's one example of how the two are connected. So our strategy, and that's why we have to be intentional to have the right shift. Because if we talk about a future-ready profession, even us as an institute, we have to be future fit to enable that future readiness of our profession. So hence the core of our changes in our target operating model is to invest in being an insight-driven organization, much more matured rather, and always embedding sustainability in all that we do with that level of intentionality. But the key thing in the success of what we want to achieve, because we're not doing this for the institute, it's for the profession that exists today, because the success lies in leaders in the profession. That's what I'm looking forward to hear from the insights that Mr. Skes, as to what is happening in the spaces where we expect development to happen. Are we moving at the same pace? What is happening when we look at the education space, right? That's why we had an education symposium, to ensure that we all are moving together. Because it's one thing to have one university thriving and moving with AI, the other one is not. But guess what? At the end of the day, if we have a good number that's not moving at the same pace, the profession stands to lose as a collective. So that's why the ecosystem have to be connected, and we have to be intentional that there is that connectivity in everything that we do. So that's how we're delivering on the strategy with that connected approach as well, right? No one should be left behind. When we look at now back to the ecosystem, especially the biggest contributor to the development of our chartered accountants and AGAs in the future, it's the audit firms. And we know there's a good number of SMPs. It is a reality that not everyone is moving at the same pace. So now the conversation is, okay, now we need to think about, for example, when we evaluate competencies, when we need to take into account the fact that now the use of AI is a norm. It's no longer an option. How do you build it in? Where else you find that others are already advanced that methodologies have changed. AI is well integrated, whereas others are still using the old, methodologies of audit as an example. So how do we bridge that gap, right? And that speaks to the conversation of now when we talk about supply economic development, how do we make sure that even as a broader profession, that we build that interest of the greater good of the profession in mind. So we want to ensure that we can look at the success of the institute and the profession, and we can go back to say, actually we've achieved great results by doing good, but the good work it's a result of the collective. So yeah, it takes the ecosystem to work well together. Yeah.
Everybody in the value chain has got to play their part,
Yeah.
and that's how we've got this, panel put together actually, because it works, everybody in the system, from the academia to the audit firms, the role of the professional body, our global partners, and then the HR practitioners,
Yeah.
at least. And so, Patricia, you touched on lots of what we're going to cover, at least in terms of AI, sustainability, and we're going to have the opportunity to dive a little bit deeper into those areas with these great thought leaders that we've got on stage today. And so maybe it's useful for us to pivot there, we spoke a lot about, the youth in this regard. And so maybe let's bring in Ahmed. You're at the cornerstone of youth development, at least, the audience cheered you on as you came up here, okay? So Ahmed, from your point of view, Patricia spoke about everybody in the ecosystem playing their part. How do you see, academia, industry, professional bodies collaborating to future-proof the profession, Mr. Bob?
Yeah, thanks, Rian. I think the audience cheered me on for my youth. So I'll take that one as a compliment, Patricia. So I think the starting point here, Rian, is, and I've attended a couple of these conferences and sessions, even the education symposium. And the thing that emerges when I sit on the receiving end or I sit on this side, what's apparent is this, and this is academia versus the profession, a them versus us mentality. So someone's pointing fingers at someone, and people are pointing fingers at everyone. So when you're on the academic side, you feel like the profession's pointing fingers at you, and when you're on the academic side, you're saying no, but the profession doesn't have a clue what they're dealing with. The youth that we have today are fantastic. They are lovely, they're energetic, the most amazing people that we have, but they're different, right? So I think the first thing we've got to overcome is we're a team here, and I think we need to overcome this them versus us mentality, and we've got to come to a common understanding. So just a heads up, to us that's driving this, Patricia, that's something I'm picking up, that we need to do that. So once we cross that, what's the kind of stuff we can do, Riyad? Is that, of course, from an education point of view, we acknowledge and we accept that the rate of change is rapid. Educational institutions are big machines that don't often move as fast as one wants them to move. But there's opportunity in that for the industry and academia to come together. So I think when we talk about curriculum refinement, our CA of the future is strong. I think our CA of the future is robust. So I'll put that out there. But then I think we've got to talk about how do we get flexibility into academia, and then we need expertise. Okay, so I think industry has the expertise around, and this is particularly in AI and software. So I think we need to see how we can corroborate on the expertise. I don't think the academic space just naturally leans itself to the way that AI and the way that transformation takes place organically. We've got different examples. So I think expertise can come in. Projects is a great idea. Research is a great idea. So I'm going to leave it as that, but those are just my initial thoughts, Rian, that can help around the collaboration.
No, thanks very much for that, Ahmed, and that team effort. Again, that ecosystem coming through. Together, everyone achieves more in in this regard. And I think you're touching on some important points about sort of flexibility and pathways. They say is that the Gen Zs are now operating on paths, not roads anymore, and ladders are no longer relevant, but rather webs that young people are operating on. And so there is this generational shift. So maybe you've sort of contextualized the sort of areas of collaboration for us. You've spoken about the Sphere of the Future, at least, and the Sphere of the Future does include a large amount of digital acumen skills. So maybe let's then dive deeper, and let's maybe then have a look at sort of this next area of disruption where we find ourselves, AI, and I want to use AI and innovation, because I think it's AI today, but we've got to look to the future and say to ourselves, what's next in this regard, and that's key for us as a profession. So maybe Bruce, let me bring you online, and let's first maybe start from a global perspective. Your work at IFAC, accountants are increasingly being expected to lead digital transformation with strategies and not to just be party to it. Sort of, give us your snapshot view of what you think we've got to do to prepare students or graduates for AI integration in the workplace. Thanks, Bruce.
Yeah, thanks, Rian. Really interesting discussion. I think that where I would start off is that we need to be very honest about the impact that this is going to have on the whole accountancy education journey, the journey towards professional qualification as well as what comes after. So, yes, there's a huge importance to get this into the classroom, into universities. Can't agree more with the need for the different competencies that are needed. I think many people in the room are well familiar with that, prompt engineering and the governance over AI use and data analytics and how those interlink and so on. We do think that it's not just those, we would describe those as human to AI skills, the interaction between the human, being the human in the loop with AI applications in the workplace.
Human-centric skills, at least, and it's a human-centric skills that are important. AI as your partner, but human to human as well in this regard, which is critical. I mean, Bruce, you touched on sort of the impact of the training contract, and so it's useful now that we sort of pivot into the audit firms at least, and maybe I come to you, Victor, now at least at this point in time, and I think Bruce has segued into sort of the impact of the training environment, a need for different type of trainee going into the future, at least still demand for a trainee, but maybe let's bring it to your firm, your operating environment at least. How is the digital transformation journey reshaping the way audit firms are operating, and the strategic shifts that are necessary within the firms, at least at this point? Victor.
Am I audible?
Yeah, they brought you on there. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, no, Rian, thank you for that question. Good discussion around digital transformation. I'm reminded years back, around 2018, when we joined the Crowdfunding Network, and a fellow colleague put a proposition in front, and it was a very, I think at that stage, very bold proposition, and the proposition was that we are in fact an IT company, and we should run ourselves as an IT company that does audits, and does advisory work, and etc. I think at that stage I didn't quite understand where he was coming from, and it was quite scary, and needless to say, I didn't adopt that posture. But down the line, we've generated AI coming up 3-4 years ago, and the penny dropped, and I realized what he meant. He has since retired, and we changed and put digital transformation at the center of our strategy. So we just signed off on a 2030 strategy journey, and we are doubling down on digital transformation. And what it means, putting technology at the center of our strategy fundamentally changes our business model in many ways. In terms of delivery, how we deliver to clients, be more efficient, more effective, but also in terms of how you recruit as well, and the type of skills you're looking at. We now gone are the days where you've got this technology, which during my days it used to be a black box, and we used to audit around the computer. There's no such a thing anymore. So we are obliged to understand what is happening inside the computer. But clients themselves, as they adopt AI, they've got high expectations of us in terms of our ability to handle AI. And therefore, we are bound to sort of keep pace, if not go ahead. And what we found ourselves is in our skill set, we've got typical accounting, auditing graduates, but we also have graduates with computer science, people that are able to code. And traditionally, areas that have been earmarked for so-called IT specialists, like the analytics and running some of the scripts that we write, normal auditors are doing it. We training auditors on basic data analytics, we training them on coding, debt auditors that are now coding, and vice versa. The computer specialists or computer graduates, we teaching them a basic auditing concept, so that when we go to the clients as integrated teams. So there is that integrated team. But suffice to say, I think looking into the future, you talk about disruption. I really believe that there's some entity, maybe it's not even around, or it's still around in Silicon or somewhere in India, that are working to disrupt the auditing profession. And I've started to as a team to acknowledge that there could be, we don't know the timelines, it could be in 10 years time, it could be in 5 years time, but we are already setting ourselves up to a situation where we are disrupted. I mean, after COVID, we were all caught unawares, with the Great Resignation, and there were some players that took our entire staff. I'm exaggerating, but you understand what I mean. We had assignments and nobody could deliver those assignments. Yeah. Literally the whole profession. So already the thinking now, we now agile, and we are starting to prepare ourselves for that disruption, that an IT company will come and take our job. Fortunately, we have regulatory cover, because the regulators are lagging behind. So, but that regulatory cover just buys you time. Before you know it, there will be a caught up and accrediting an IT company to go into audits. So it will only buy that time. So we're already starting early stages, early time, but the expectations of an audit trainee are totally different. And gone are the days where we are boxing people now in their domains. Yeah.
No,
I just want to add a little, because what you're saying is so true, and what we're seeing is sustainability as well, which is, over the years we've enjoyed, the privilege of being the ones that are providing assurance and financial information, and now sustainability is profession agnostic, which means that now we are competing with other professions, right? So your point also applies in the space of sustainability, but your mention on innovation is such a critical point, to build on digital transformation, because the question of what is the level of appetite in the profession is a collective, because we need to embrace innovation, but embracing innovation, it also means that we must have a good level of appetite, that there will be things that don't necessarily go the way you want them to, but the ability for us to then say, look, we're gonna take the chance either way. And if we fail forward, and we fail fast, and we're able to still continue on the innovation journey. And I'm not seeing that level of appetite cutting across. The bigger firms they are, the SMPs, we not see that come through, but also the issue and the question of access to capital. So maybe what we're missing here is the capital providers, right, in this platform. Because what we're seeing, because IFEC, as well, we are doing a study, we're focusing on the PE trends that are happening in the market. Private equity is coming into the space, especially in the assurance space. We don't know whether South Africa is immune. I mean, we know they're knocking on some doors, but we may see that coming through. And what does it mean in terms of looking at, how the shape of the profession is going to look like in the future? And obviously it's Ethics Month as well. When other professions are in some areas of disciplines like sustainability, where it may not be, accountants, what does it mean from an ethical conduct, and also the measure of what is expected from an ethical conduct perspective? So those are the things that as a profession we need to think of, and also move with speed in terms of what guardrails are we going to put in place. And I like the comment earlier on that handrails, so that we hold each other's hands as well, so that we walk this journey together. But with that said, it's an opportunity. It's a transitional phase, and I think all of us in the profession now, we should be excited about this phase, because we are part of shaping the future of the profession.
No, thanks for that, Patricia. I mean, we're contextualizing it in terms of the challenges, but most definitely also, but what are the opportunities, at least, for us going forward in this regard. Recognizing also that we've got to get ahead as well, because if there's accountants, if we don't get ahead, as Victor's famous point is, we could be left behind in this particular process, at least. But maybe also, I think what's very important, at least, and is that we can't, and I mean, Bruce made this point, at least, and Victor's touched on this also in terms of sort of the human element, at least. And so, Alan, I want to bring you in here from a leadership perspective, at least. And what mindset is needed to help professionals in this transitionary, transformative world that we're finding ourselves in, particularly sort of in terms of AI, having to take on new skill sets, Patricia mentioned sustainability as well, where we challenge differently, from your experience. You'll come on up. Yeah.
There are a couple of things that I see leaders needing to do is move beyond where they are, because that's how we're going to get into the future. And one of those things is to move beyond knowledge. Now, I have great regard for the accounting profession. I think our accountants are extremely well trained, they're highly competent, so they're very knowledgeable people. But knowledge is no longer enough. John Wooden, the American basketball player in his day, and he became the coach of UCLA, very popular, he made an interesting comment. He said, it's what you learn after you know it all that counts.
Yeah.
So his implication is, know your stuff, be knowledgeable, but don't stop there. Now, the question I have to ask myself is, what lies beyond knowledge? And Ahmed made the interesting point there about expertise, because my understanding is that that is what lies beyond knowledge. And by expertise, I'm talking about one's experience, one's insight, one's intuition, one's judgment, gut instinct, and wisdom, where you have a situation and you have to say, no, I wouldn't do that, I wouldn't grant that. You say, why not? You say, I don't know, but it just doesn't smell right. And the reason for that is because while we are swimming in a sea of data, there is still also, the irony of it is increasing uncertainty. And increasing uncertainty is a lack of data, a lack of knowledge. And when you haven't got the knowledge or the data to base a decision, what are you going to do? And that's where you need your expertise to come in. So that's an important thing to me. Another thing that I think that leaders today need to do is move beyond skills. Because skills are things you can do. So step 1, step 2, step 3, yep, I got it. I can do that skill. So people are very skilled. But what we need to move now beyond is beyond skills to qualities. And things like we've been talking about adaptability, resilience, those are not skills, those are qualities. Skills are things you can do, qualities are things you are. And it's not so easy to help people develop those qualities. Empathy is another thing today that we need. And training.com, American training website, a couple of years ago did a survey to determine what training spend was done globally annually. and what the outcome of it was. They determined that $365 billion was spent on training globally. And the answer to the other question was, it was a failure. And I said to myself, why? If you look at the content that business schools are delivering, universities, etc., excellent quality of content. The conclusion I came to was that the people that go through these training processes, very often they don't change behavior. And so there has been a failure. And the problem is that we deliver information, but information doesn't change behavior. Apologies, I've got nothing against smokers, but do smokers know that smoking is bad for their health? Absolutely. Do smokers know that smoking causes cancer? Absolutely. Does it stop them smoking? Not at all. Information doesn't change behavior. What does change behavior is insight. When people see something, they say, oh, I see what you mean. They make all the changes in themselves, and those changes are usually permanent. You don't need refresher courses, because once you see something differently, you can never unsee it. And that's what I'm talking about in terms of qualities. For us to develop qualities, we have to acquire insight, so we can see that we need to change certain things.
No, thanks very much for that.